Welcome agents, title update 3.0 and the Operation Dark Hours raid is due to be coming out in May, and if it's not put back again, and based on my calculations, we're looking at a further 3 weeks before this happens. Now as of right now, there is an ongoing PTS and there is more than enough time to add some stuff either now or in a later update that I think was missing from the launch of the game. Now if you enjoy this video and agree with my suggestions, please hit the like button as it really does help me out, and turn on notifications after you've subscribed for dedicated Division content. With that said, let's get to it. Alright, so I've got 5 things here that I know for sure is missing, and I want you to leave your own suggestions down below, please. Now before I continue, I want you all to know that I think there is more than enough content in this game, and this is not me saying the devs haven't done a good job, but there are some things I think the game is missing or could do with, and the devs may want to consider these right now, before the raid comes out or on raid day, or for a future patch or update. Now number 1 is companion app, and these are not in ranking order, I'm just going to go from 1 to 5. So companion app. Now the Division 1 was due to launch with its very own companion app when it was first announced, but was unfortunately removed at kind of the last minute. Now with the news of the Division 2, I think most people would have expected some sort of companion app, especially when you consider that the developers describe the Division 2 as having more build diversity than the Division. More gear, more weapons, mods and all that good stuff. Now I don't know right now if that's true, if there is more build diversity, but having the ability to change your build in Theorycraft on the fly without having to write down build ideas on paper would be the perfect addition to the game, and it works perfectly well in other games like Destiny 2. If none of you guys have ever played Destiny 2 or even checked out the Destiny companion app, I highly recommend it. It's very, very good. Now this question was asked of the devs when they revealed the Division 2. And the developers, I actually think it was Julian Garrity, said it was not coming because they wanted to focus on making the game as good as possible. Now, I completely understand that, but this has to be something they need to consider now as a quality of life addition to the game. There are some very good websites out there like Division Builder, but these aren't quite what I'd want to see. For a companion app, I'd want something just like the Destiny companion app, and I don't like referring back to it, but it's very good, so I'm going to. Now you can access all of your characters and everything that you have, swap and change things around on the fly. If they built in some sort of build function as well, like the Division Builder, where you can pick everything and create a build, that would also be great. You know, you'd have access to every single thing within the game, you could create your own builds, you could put your stuff in there, and then you can see what sort of stuff is missing. I think that would just be a great addition to the game, and even if you want to go a step further than that, if it was really tied to the game, if there are pieces that are missing, perhaps you could make that a project in the game, just like you can do with materials or weapons or pieces of gear, whatever. Now maybe I'm overreaching here, but what I'm trying to say is a companion app would be a huge success, and I think everyone would agree this is something the game does need, especially if we're going to be getting more gear sets, more gear in general, and all that sort of stuff. As of right now, there is a lot of stuff in the game generally, and it's quite hard sifting through stuff. That's sometimes due to stash and all other things, but it's mainly because half the time I'm spent making builds in-game, whereas if I'm doing stuff in my life as opposed to actually playing the game, then I can do that whilst I'm walking somewhere, whatever, and I don't have to do that. When I come back to the game, that's already built for me. I've created that loadout somewhere else, and I can just play the game and enjoy it without having to stand in the base of operations figuring out what sort of build I'm going to make. Ranked PvP. Now, the Division 2 is really suffering right now for various reasons, but one main reason is the PvP. Now, even the main man himself, Marco, tweeted today saying he's pretty much done with the Division 2 because PvP is so bad. You know, he'll step his foot in the water when there's some updates with PvE, but as of right now, because PvP is so bad, he's pretty much done, and that says a lot because he's the main man, and I think that's the same for a lot of PvPers out there. So let's first make sure that PvP is great. But then, I think having ranked PvP would be the perfect addition to the conflict game mode. A ranked game mode would really appease those who really want that challenge. Those sweats, you know, like Mark of Blades. Now, much love to Blades, you're a beast and I'm just jealous, obviously. Now, in all seriousness, a ranked conflict mode would be great. And maybe ranked PvP would give you sort of like an extra 20% XP, just like Survival did in the Division with PvE and PvP survival. Now, this works really well in other games, and unlike the Dark Zone, this would be a pure PvP environment without any of the crap that comes from the Dark Zone like NPCs. Now this wouldn't take people away from the Dark Zone because the DZ adds that uncertainty that no other game mode can, and that wouldn't be lost with this. Now, to take this idea again a step forward, what about a ranked conflict mode without normalised stats? Maybe we could get a ranked mode with a voting system on skills that can or cannot be used, like Black Ops 3. Now, who wants to bet the Defender drone would always be voted out? Now, this wouldn't need to be there if the game was balanced, but what I'm saying is if it wasn't balanced, then maybe this would be a good idea. Now, these are just ideas, and I understand the Division 2 is its own game, so maybe the voting system wouldn't be a good idea. But it's an idea, which is something that we really need right now. We need ideas. Now, I think this would be absolutely awesome, and it would satisfy that hardcore audience of PvP that appear to be done with the Division 2 at this point. Now, I know the Dark Zone is getting some updates with Title 3.0 and there are other changes coming that will affect conflict, like time to kill changes, but this doesn't add any incentive to play these modes at this point. Having a ranked conflict mode would add incentive if you tie extra experience to it, leaderboards, maybe rewards, I don't know. Now, I can't be any worse than what we have currently. As it stands, the Division 2 is not just missing ranked PvP, but it's just missing PvP in general. End of mission statistics. Okay, so I have it on good authority that during the alpha test for the Division 2, you could hold the reload button and it would pull up your end of mission statistics in a lot of detail apparently. And of course, anything from that alpha is still under an NDA, so I'm not going to reveal where this came from, but it makes me wonder why this was then removed. And if it was part of the alpha, then maybe it would be easy to reinstate. Now, I think this would add a level of friendly, competitive behaviour within a group play, and also as a solo player, it would cater to those people who want to beat content as perfectly as possible, with the highest stats, the highest amount of damage, the least amount of damage taken, all that sort of good stuff. Even for me as sort of a casual PvE player, I would love to see my stats after a mission. Now, the Division 2 tracks everything in the game, and if you go into conflict and look at what's being tracked, it's pretty extensive. So they are certainly tracking everything in PvE, so why not just add this to the game? Just add it at the end of a mission. It would be a simple addition that would add a lot to an already enjoyable experience, and I bet PvE players would be very happy with this. More is better, that's what she said, in general within gaming, if it doesn't take away from what's already there. Now, this was something I thought would be added, to be honest, so please devs, just reinstate this feature. If it was already there, then just leave it. Survival. Now, this is a tricky subject, I think. I bet anyone who loves survival would love for this to come back, but on the other hand, is it better this was something unique to the Division? Now, I just don't know, but what I do know is that this question of survival returning in the Division 2 had to be the most popular question leading up to the announcement that it wouldn't be here at launch. Now, it's important that I say at launch because various devs have said they'd love for this to come back, and none of them have said it's not coming, which is quite revealing as they have a habit of being pretty outspoken about things that are not coming. In fact, I think it was Julian Garrity again who said that he wouldn't be surprised if it made an apparition in Washington D.C. If that's not a hint that this mode is likely coming back, I don't know what is really. And I think that with the Washington D.C. setting, this could be awesome. Now, I did a speculation video some time ago about survival taking place on Roosevelt Island. Now, I know that's very unlikely. I would like to see what the overall consensus is on the return of survival though. Anyone who thinks it should come back, leave a 1 in the comments, and for anyone who doesn't, leave a 2 and I'll review it in 2 days, and let's just see what you guys want. Now, I personally love it to return because it's one of those game modes you have to experience, even if you don't play the rest of the Division or the Division 2, because it perfectly represents the survival title. Now, who's seen the sandstorms in the open world or the hazy DC-62 in the Dark Zone? Imagine this atmosphere with the survival elements of Washington D.C. It would be the opposite of the Division survival, but just as awesome, I can promise you that. So for number 5, I haven't really got anything because I want you guys to tell me what you think is missing from the Division 2. Now, there is a lot that I could add here. I could easily make this video an hour long, but what's the point? What I'm interested in is not what guns are missing or what gear is missing and all of that stuff that doesn't really matter at this point, but stuff that really would help the game. And aside from survival, something new and maybe something refreshing. Now, I think the Division 2 is suffering because it's just too familiar. There's nothing really new here. There's nothing really refreshing here that we didn't really get from the Division. And I think that's one of the main reasons why people are kind of moving themselves away from the game at this moment in time. Not just that, there is a patch due in May, obviously title update 3.0, that will certainly change things for everyone. So at this point, there's not really a whole lot of reasons to farm, at least from what I can tell. The only thing that I can that I personally would farm at the moment is gear that's got high stat rolls, just due to the recalibration changes. For example, if you find a piece of gear like what I've got with 20% headshot damage, then you want to keep that, because you will be able to re-roll or move that 20% onto another piece of gear with the recalibration changes coming in the next update. But aside from that, there's not really a whole lot to farm at this point, plus the stash base isn't really big enough for you to farm too much. So instead of farming, let's try and think of things the Division 2 is missing, and maybe, just maybe, the devs will consider these for future updates, like the suggestions I've mentioned in today's video. That's it though, guys. Thanks very much for watching, and don't forget, tomorrow is State of the Game and I will have you covered, so turn on notifications, and that way you won't miss it if you haven't already. With that said, thanks for your support, and until the next one, Epic out.